Yo, welcome to Sig Slayers, the comic signature show, period. I'm Mike the Sig Slayer, chilling with Mark the Honorable Villain. What up, fam?
What's up, Mike? We got another member of the Ghost Machine team, man. Some of the best creators out there.
Man, we got a heavyweight, man. We have Ghost Machine's own Jason Fabok with us. Before we chop it up with Jason, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment. All right, our next guest is a giant in the comic book industry. This is his first time on Sig Slayers. He's the artist of the best-selling Three Jokers series, the man who thought up Rook in Rook Exodus. Ladies and gentlemen of the Stash fam, we bring to you the one and only Jason Fabok. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic. We have you on. It's been great. We just got back from Baltimore Comic-Con, and then now we're talking to Jason Fabok. So it is fantastic. So we're going to just dive right on in, Jason. Since it's your first time joining us, we like to get our guests a comic book or origin story. In other words, how did you get your first gig in pro comics?
The quickest answer to that was I apprenticed with David Finch. This was in 2010. And he was kind of training me to be a pencil assist for him. What that job is, it was something that was more common years ago. Nowadays, I don't think it's a very common thing in comics. But for years and years and years, pencil assists would come in and help the penciler do a lot of the tedious kind of stuff, so that the penciler could focus on the characters, the layouts and whatnot, and then they might lay out the buildings, kind of the shape of where they want, and then you would go in there after they were done and draw all the little windows on every building, or draw crowds and stuff like that, so that the penciler could stick to the main parts of the story. And so Dave was kind of training me to be that. At this time he was at Marvel, but then he made a switch to DC and was working just mostly on covers at the time. There was a lot of Brightest Day covers and stuff like that, I remember. And he's like, I don't really have any work for you. So he's like, why don't we put together a portfolio, send it in to DC and see if they'll give you some work. And so they did. And so I got in and I did, filled in on 2 issues of Superman Batman, which was like a massive awakening. It was like, this job is tough. Like, you have to draw at such a breakneck speed, and my quality suffered, and I don't really think I did a very good job. But the one thing I did do was I did hit that deadline somehow. And so that then led to other opportunities. Dave helped me get some work with Aspen Comics, which was really good too, because I was able to kind of just step back and learn at a little slower pace from guys who had been, working beside Michael Turner and all this kind of stuff for years. They were training up a lot of young talent at the time. And so I got a lot of exposure with them, and they took me all over the place to different comic conventions, and I got to meet all kinds of artists and make connections. And then eventually I went back to DC, and interestingly enough, it was David Finch's Batman Dark Knight series. This was pre-New 52, and it was ending, and then he was jumping ahead into the New 52 version. And so he had 2 issues there, and he's like, let's just let's do a story, and you draw it. And so I drew it, and then that's what kind of got my full-time gig at DC after that point.
Jason, can you explain to us the evolution of Rook from your idea as a kid to its inception in Rook Exodus #1?
Rook was a character that was kind of bouncing around in my head for quite a long time. I had this idea, and at one point he was more like a Batman kind of character, taking place in like a 1930s film noir kind of thing. And then he became. Then I thought, well, it'd be kind of interesting if this character was more science fiction-y, kind of mixing Star Wars with Batman kind of deal. And then I kept doing these little sketches and stuff of this character and trying to figure out this character's helmet and what I wanted it to look like. And then eventually, when Jeff and I were talking about a creator-owned book together, he had said, he was like, well, do you have any ideas or whatever? And I was showing him all these sketches I had, and he was intrigued by it. But he kept on asking things like, well, why does he have a helmet that kind of has like a bird look to it? And so my answer was really, well, I thought it looked kind of cool, you know? And so he's like, well, there's got to be a reason why he's got a bird helmet. So then that kind of all of a sudden went from just this kind of mercenary guy, you know. I originally imagined this character going from planet to planet, having adventures, fighting bad guys and all kinds of stuff. And then we really just locked this thing down and Jeff came up with this huge idea, like almost overnight. He had like just a brainstorm, and he came up with the whole story about the planet of Exodus and what was going on there. And then we had all these ideas with these characters with the helmets. And because he was like, well, if he's got a bird helmet, he can control birds. What if there's a character who can control wolves and bears and turtles and all this kind of stuff? And so it was one of those things where the idea wasn't really there until the two of us really started talking about it and brainstorming. And then all of a sudden, this whole universe just popped into being, and we've worked it over time, and we even to this day we're making little changes and suggesting, well, maybe we explore this or we do this with the world and these characters. But it was really cool. It was almost like magic. It like all just kind of came, you know, at once. And you know, Jeff and I have worked like that quite a bit. Like, it's interesting with him. It's like, even with Three Jokers, it was like we kind of knew some of the story, and then we got together and did a brainstorming session in LA, and all of a sudden the whole thing just happened. It just all appeared, the story. And so it's fun when that happens. You really hit like an idea, and then you just go off and running with it, and then it's at that point it's like you hope people are gonna like it, you know, that they're gonna want to buy it. So,
well, Jason, this seems to be a staple of your bibliography. I know this is premature to say, but can you envision Rook Exodus as an ongoing title with different writers and different artists, like a typical ongoing superhero title?
I think that would be really cool. Like, I think part of my idea has always been and Jeff and I have talked about this, it's like it would be cool if these characters outlived us and became something more. But then at the same time, I also really like the idea that comes from a lot of Japanese manga, where they tell us a complete story. Like, there's a beginning, a middle, and a definite end, and they will end a series at, you know, 100 issues or whatever, you know, like and so part of me likes that idea too, of telling a full complete story with a beginning, a middle, and a definite end, and then ending the thing, and it not continuing on past that with other artists and writers. Again, I think that would be neat. Either way, it would be really cool to see this thing go. Like, my plan with this book, and Jeff and I have discussed this, is that my plan is that as long as people are buying this book and there's a desire for more of these stories, I want to keep working on this and keep building this out and make it an ongoing. Now, it's not going to be a monthly, because I can't draw that fast, nor do I want to. But I do want to put out a significant story arc yearly, and keep building on the mythos. And maybe eventually, we will expand out the book and bring in other artists and writers to expand other parts of the world if there's a desire for that from the fan base. Like, but that's something, again, it's like it's you don't know. You just got to keep going and keep building it, and build that fan base naturally and gradually. And if it's something that people want, I hope I could draw this book and these characters for a very long time, as long as I keep wanting to do it and we have a story to tell. I would love to just keep going at it like that. So for now, I'm focused on each little story arc, and I'm excited to draw these books and these characters. And I'm glad that people are picking the book up and reading it. And and are passionate about it too. A lot of cool fan videos and stuff like that, and fan art comes my way, and it excites me to see that people are into it, and they like the idea, and that they want to read about it. It's very cool to see that.
We're going to jump around various aspects of Ghost Machine with you, Jason, and we're going to talk about Ghost Machine variant covers, man. I mean, there's all sorts. The ones that are being released straight to the store. Obviously, there are cool convention ones you guys have when you guys make appearances. I want to talk specifically about the 1 out of 1,000 sketch variants, those retailer initiative sketch variants that are one of one sketches. I saw some online of Gary Frank did some on Geiger. I heard Bryan Hitch talk on a cap about he's doing some for Red Coat. And then I actually have one from you with Rook Exodus. But when I posted it, people were questioning, like, where did that come from? And so can you clear the air and explain to everyone, how did shops qualify for those 1 out of 1,000 sketch variants?
Yeah, because you had contacted me and asked me about that. And so, yeah, I believe I did 5 or 6. I can't really remember. But it was something like that. It was something like if they ordered so many copies of the book, we would do one of these sketch, like a head sketch on a blank book. Though I don't know all the ins and outs about how they were qualified for that. Okay. It's funny because it's like, Mike Cotton or somebody from Ghost Machine will just send you stuff in the mail, and they'll be like, hey, can you do a couple of these sketches, these sketch covers? These are for retailers. I said, okay. So you did them. And then I mail them back. And so it's like, because they're always asking for stuff like that. And sometimes it's just like, you just do it because it's like, okay, I gotta get this done. They asked me to do that. But I could find out more info, but I think there was like, I think I did 5 or 6 of them. And
what about at conventions? Did you do any at conventions on the Rook Exodus?
Yeah, I've done some on the blanks at conventions. Yes, I've done some of those. Those were, I don't know. I don't know how many I've done. I was numbering them at one point, but then I just stopped numbering them because I couldn't remember how many I had drawn. Yeah.
Let's talk. Okay, so here we go. Another collector question, because this is Sig Slayers, and this is kind of what separates us from the rest of the group. Ghost Machine was in Toronto Fan Expo, I want to say a few weeks back, and you busted out on IG some 3 Joker remarks. Have you done those before, or was that something you broke out for Toronto?
I've never done it like that with the pink thing, like using like a pink paint pen. Mm-hmm. I have done some in the past that were just with like a silver Sharpie, but I never liked drawing on, like, doing a remark or anything on a cover with just a straight Sharpie, because the Sharpies are so thick and it doesn't match my line work. Like, I use very thin kind of lines and stuff like that. But was it at Toronto? Yeah, I think it was at Toronto. I did a couple on the Rook books as well, where I just took a silver Sharpie, kind of did an outline of Rook's helmet and then filled it in, and then drew with. I found out that using like my normal micron pens, I could actually draw like a fairly detailed little sketch over top of the silver Sharpie for like a remark. So I did a couple of those on the Rook, and then I tried the pink ones on the 3 Jokers. And so, but I have done some very quick remarks on 3 Joker books in the past, just with a Sharpie. But again, like I said, I wasn't 100% happy with how those turned out. I might have even done them a couple times with like a white Posca pen or whatever like that too, like a paint marker. But those ones with the pink, that was the first time I tried that, and it worked fairly well. I'm trying to find the tough part is finding a marker that lays down a nice layer that you can draw on, but I find that the markers sometimes they actually dig into the paint itself that's now on so you're not getting a nice line drawn over top of the pink. It's almost like cutting into it. And so then you got to I found using like a brush pen helped. I was able to do what I wanted to do, but even then I wouldn't get there's kind of a give and take, because it's not going to be 100% how you want it. You're drawing over some paint on a cover, right? So
Right.
But I don't know. I've seen other guys do it. I asked Francis Manipool how he's done stuff like that in the past. So he kind of gave me some, like, he tried these markers or whatever. And so, yeah, I might try those again in the future. It all just depends on time and if I can swing it, kind of thing. But I liked how those turned out, and it's cool that you got one of those.
All right, let's keep the conversation with Three Jokers. Last time you collaborated with Jeff, Brad, and Rob was on Three Jokers. Was Three Jokers always meant to be released in 2020, or was it supposed to be released on an earlier date?
No, it was always for 2020. There was a lot of, one of the things that kind of made us a little angry was that somebody from DC had leaked that we were working on that book even before we even were working on it. And so then there was like this perception that the book was late when it was never, so we are leading up, we worked on it for a good 2 years. And so it was like, and so people shouldn't have even known about it until we were ready to kind of announce it. But somebody at DC, one of the editors at the time, had leaked that we were working on it. And so that kind of then, from that point on, there was always this talk of, oh, the book's late. It's late. Well, no, it was never supposed to be announced.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't even it was still like another 5 or 6 months after they had mentioned that we even started working on the thing, right? So, because Jeff was doing stuff for the movie stuff and whatnot, so he didn't have time. And the only thing I will say is, because of COVID, we wanted the book to kind of come out in April of 2020, but then COVID hit, and so everybody was scrambling what to do. They weren't really sure. They didn't want to just release the book out because they were scared if they released it in April of 2020, it would just go to die. Because who was going to the shops at around that time? It was nobody really knew what was going on. Everything was kind of in shutdown. So I think it was Dan DiDio was like, why don't we just hold it off and put it out a little later in the year, and maybe, hopefully things will clear up by then. And so we did. And that also afforded me the time to do all those Joker variants. Right. Because originally they wouldn't have had that. It would have had 3 covers, the bat, or 2 covers each, a villain and a hero, so Batman and Joker, and Batgirl, Joker, and Red Hood, Joker. But then because we had that extra time and I was done the book, it's like, okay, why don't we do this? And we built up and did all those cool variant covers. They wanted to have other artists come in and do variants for retailer exclusives and stuff. And I was like, no, I kind of I didn't like that idea because, and this maybe, I don't know, this is maybe a little selfish of me, but I was like, I worked 2.5 years of this thing in my life is poured into this. I don't want somebody else coming in, drawing covers and making money off this thing forever, selling prints and all this kind of stuff. I gave my life for this book. If I have time, if we have time to do variants, let me figure out how to do a bunch of variants. And that's when we kind of came up with Mark Doyle, the editor, kind of had this idea about, well, what if each variant was like a photo shoot of the Joker and it's different poses, but it's keeping it within a face, so we could do quick. And then I said, well, no, what if they're the faces of the Joker from the different eras from these? And then that's how the whole idea came. And that was an easy option. Instead of me drawing a whole bunch of these complicated covers with fight scenes and stuff like that, it was just the faces and with a black background. And so it enabled me to knock out a bunch of these covers and get them done on time, and then be ready for publishing when it came out in, I don't know if it was October of that year. It was something like that. So it turns out that it all worked out, and I was able to keep my fingerprints all over it and own it myself, as the artist on the book. So that's kind of how that all happened and came about.
Jason, switching over to Rook, let me ask you a process question. What are your methods for producing Rook Exodus?
Well, it's not too different than doing any of the DC stuff. You know, you're getting a script from Jeff. I read the script. I then go through it. I start to lay out some of the pages, come up with ideas. It's funny, a lot of the times when you read a script, it's whatever is your first gut instinct about what a page should look like, even if it's not what the writer actually says. Sometimes you read the script a little wrong and you see something different in your head for a splash page or whatever. Usually going with your gut is always the best thing. It's like there's like an instinct of like, no, that's what it should be. That's how the page should look. So then I go through that and then I start drawing it. The difference is that because all of this stuff in this universe and these characters are new, sometimes you get thrown for a loop, and it's like, for example, in issue, I think it was in issue 3, there's this big vehicle we call the Ark, and it's like this big giant moving tank base thing that looks kind of like
sick.
In the description. In this description, it was like, we talked about this, we came up with this idea actually when Jeff came and visited my house, and we were kind of laying out the story and what we wanted to do. This was a couple of years back, but that was even before Ghost Machine wasn't even an idea. It was just, we were just working on this book. But he in the script, it was just like a giant boat on treads, moving through the, like Noah's Ark on treads, But it's like okay, yeah, I read that and you got a couple ideas come in your head, but then you're like, well, it's gotta look cool, it's gotta have something more to it. And so it took me like 2 weeks to design that thing, and I came up with a whole bunch of different designs and ideas. One of the things that one of the tools I use a lot is I have a background in 3D modeling and animation. I went to school for that. So sometimes when I'm designing something like that, like a vehicle, I will go into a 3D program and I'll start building basic shapes, a shape language. So I'll start putting together, like for that arc, I'll put together blocks and things like that and towers, and I'll build like some treads and stuff like that, or tires or whatever, and I build different versions and I move those pieces around until I find a version of it that I like. And then it's like, okay, that's kind of the basic shape I'm going to use, because you want a nice silhouette and it's something that looks kind of cool and interesting and different. And so I'll use some of that stuff with some of the vehicles. Same with the helmets too. With the helmets, actually, my brother, who works in video games, he works at Infinity Ward. He does character models for Call of Duty and stuff.
Wow.
And so he actually helped me design a lot of the helmets. I would give him a basic sketch and he would model it pretty quick in one of his, I forget what it's called that he uses, but he's got like this model. It's a modeling program. It's almost like working with clay with a stylus. And so he would build these basic versions of the helmet, of like Rook's helmet. And we have many different versions that we actually went through throughout the years. Even before the project was even started, we were building the Rook helmet first, and finally kind of got it to a form that we really liked. Actually, I have like a 3D
that's cool
printout of like the helmet. This was like one of the first versions of it. It's changed a little bit and I widened it and stuff like that. But this gives me at least the ability to I actually have another one somewhere too, but to actually like draw the helmet from whatever angle I need, and I can light it and stuff like that. So it gives me a reference. But I also have I have the Direwolf helmet and the Ursa helmet too. Like I gave my brother some turnarounds. This is kind of what I want it to look like, and then he modeled it. And then I can see what it looks like in 3D space. And so I go, I don't know if I like that piece there. I want to make sure the helmets have a nice silhouette from different angles so that you can really tell who the character is. And I use a lot of those skills I learned in college. I didn't go into animation or video games or model, but I can use those programs and I use them to my advantage to help me visualize things almost like in a pre-production way. So I'll do that with different characters, different helmets. For the animals, I'll kind of build a very rough shape for them. And then some of them I just draw. I just kind of came up with a sketch and then I try and draw it from the different angles. It's a lot harder than if you have an actual visual reference that you can turn in 3D and see, because there's such intricate shapes.
Right.
With these helmets, drawing a helmet on a character is a lot harder than just drawing a face. Drawing a human face, you know kind of what a 3/4 face looks like, where your line, but when you got these intricate shapes moving across a 3-dimensional object, that's when it becomes handy to have like a 3D, like a little printout. So like if I want that angle there, or that angle, or that angle, I can, or even looking up, I can see kind of where the little wings on the helmet here come back in space. And so it just adds to that believability that you're really looking at something that's real, and not me just fudging it each time and trying to figure out what it's supposed to look like. It never looks consistent or anything like that. So,
well, how are you doing your layouts? Are you doing this digitally as well, and doing it also so it expedites the process? Because I mean, these books are really thick. I would think it would be take a longer time to do it traditionally, right? Or am I wrong with that?
No, I've worked pretty much exclusively digitally since I started at DC. Really, again, going back to my training in college, I was very familiar with Photoshop and using a stylus and a pen and all that kind of stuff. I was very comfortable with that. I remember my parents had bought me like a Wacom tablet years ago, like when I was a teenager, and so I was already fooling around with digital painting and stuff like that. I will draw like covers, commissions, sketches, the odd page here and there. I will do it traditionally, mostly for the thought of, well, maybe one day I can sell this original art. I've kind of fallen into a position now where I'm kind of keeping a lot of my originals because I want to pass them on to my kids. So a lot of the Rook covers and some of the big splash pages and initial designs and stuff are all traditional on board that I have that I can pass on to my family. But a lot of the interior stuff is all digital. It's just quicker, and I got to pump this stuff out pretty quick, and it's faster. I can make as many mistakes as I want, and I can just erase it and just keep going. Sometimes it's funny too, like sometimes I'll draw something. There's been a couple times this happened in Rook where I drew a really cool page with a really cool pose from one of our characters, and then Jeff and I, when we looked at the story, we said, I don't know if that's the right ending to that book, or that I don't know. And then he would always be like, well, but we drew like such a great page, we can't just get rid of it. And it's like, well, Jeff, I can always I could use this pose somewhere else, in another book. Let's do what's best for the story. If I need to redraw that page, let's just redraw it. And so then I think the end of issue 2 was like that. I redrew some of that final page there, but then it's cool because then I ended up using like those one of the poses later on in a different issue. You would never know, because I already had this really cool shot of Ursa. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna use it over here in this issue over here, and it's like I can do that with digitally pretty easy. It's in some ways it's great because you can get stuff done a little quicker, but in some ways it also, you noodle a lot more. You're a lot more become very perfectionist about it. I gotta make sure that I gotta redraw that helmet again because it doesn't look right. But then again, at the same time, it's like, well, I drew the helmet too big. You can just scale it down a bit, and it's like, okay, now it looks fine, and then you move on, So, but that's kind of how I've worked for a while now, and I'd probably be the way I work, forever. I'm just comfortable with it.
Man, I mean, you sound like a surgeon, man. You have your methods, and to me, it's all about the story. What's going to get the story out there? What's going to get into the reader's hands, and that's what it's all about. I'm interested on your take on this next question, Jason. The formation of Ghost Machine production has been compared to the formation of Image Comics itself, with all the rock star talent. I mean, you got Francis Montepool, Peter Tomasi. I mean, so many people. I mean, Jeff Johns, obviously, Gary Frank. I keep going on, right? Jason Fabok. Then you got the rock star Brad Anderson in the mix too. It's just crazy. What are your thoughts when people make those comparisons?
Yeah, I don't know. I see it's hard because I see those guys, like I see Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee. Like these are guys that I looked up to like when I was a kid, right? Like I was kind of getting into comics. There was after the whole Image thing kind of had already started, but I was getting into comics later on in the 90s. But I knew who these guys were, like their artwork. Even as a kid who wasn't necessarily a comic book reader, I knew their artwork because it was like iconic, even outside of comics. Like if you watch the X-Men animated series, as a kid, you knew these art because the art looked like Jim Lee's art, and then you'd see Cable show up and stuff. And it's like, oh, you knew, okay, kind of what Rob Liefeld, what his art looked like, right? And so I see those guys as larger than life, and so I don't know. I think we have a lot to prove with still with what we're doing. To me, like Bryan Hitch, like to me, I'm a little starstruck sometimes, and I, to be honest, like I've looked up to Gary Frank for years. I remember reading Ultimates and being blown away by it, and it's like now I'm working with Bryan and even Jeff. Like it took me a long time to kind of let down some of my guard with Jeff because he was in my mind, like he's this superstar, like the highest of the highest in comics. He's done some of my favorite comic books. And then when I'm working with him on like Justice League and stuff, you're like in awe that he wants to work with you. So you're trying to do your best. I didn't want to say something dumb to him that he might be like, I don't want to work with this guy ever again, So it's like I felt like I kept my guard up a bit, and it took a while until I was finally could just kind of be myself a little more and be comfortable around him. But that happened when he and I really just started hanging out at different events and stuff, and I just realized, yeah, he's just a normal guy, like anybody else, right? Like he thinks certain things are funny. You can joke with him about things, you can get into different topics with him. You can talk comic books with him, and all of a sudden he comes alive. And so it's like, yeah, and we found out that over time we found out that we're very similar in a lot of ways, and we have a lot of the same thoughts and ideas about things. And so, but yeah, I think with me, I want to prove a lot with Ghost Machine. Like I want to build this company. I want to build it slowly with this group and focus on high quality, great quality content, great stories, great characters. Build an excellent team of creators who have come in and who fit with us, who fit with our culture, who fit with the ideas that we have about what we think makes a successful company. And I want to build it, and I want to be surprised at where we are in year 5. Like we have a goal set. I know kind of where I think it's going to go, but I'm hoping that we just build that audience, build the fan base, and maybe even build up new talent as we go as well. I think that's important, finding some new talent, either who are working at DC Marvel or who have never done much, who are just starting out. And and just we all love comics, and we love the medium of comics. I think it's the best. And so it's like I want this to work, and I want it to be a success. I believe it will be because of the people that we have working for us and working with us and part of this company. And so, I don't know. We still have, I feel we have a lot to prove. And so we use that as fuel to keep pushing ourselves further and further and do better on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
We're hearing lots of noise amongst the fans about Rook Exodus. People love Rook Exodus. YouTube love Rook Exodus. You know how YouTube can be. We hear you're a notorious action figure collector, action figure guy. Just educate the fans on just some classic toys, some toy runs, toy manufacturing. Just school us on some dope stuff.
Yeah, if you could see my office is looks like a bomb blew up. I got stuff everywhere right now. But I actually went through and cleaned it out a little while ago and started putting some stuff away because I wanted to make room for other things. But I've always liked collecting action figures and statues, Lego. I'm a big Lego collector. Once I started making some money, I went back and bought all the old Lego sets I wanted when I was a kid that I never had, right? And it's taken over too. One of the things that I really have been enjoying lately, and this is with now that I have kids, is I've really been enjoying that these companies are kind of reissuing the new molds of classic toys. So for example, like they did like the real Ghostbusters,
okay,
like a redo of the originals, and I never had those original ones. I had other ones from the series, but never like the original ones in the original costume. And they reissued like the Ecto-1 car that I had as a kid, and that's fun because it's like my kids want to play with that stuff, right? And so or the Ninja Turtles, they kind of reissue the original Ninja Turtles every couple of years here, and so I've got a couple sets of those. But my kids love that, and so it allows me to connect with them in a really fun way. Same with the whole Lego thing. Like my oldest son, like we've kind of, as I've collected some of the older Lego stuff, he knows about all this stuff, and he knows about these sets and all the Lego space from 1980 to 1985 is this, and the castle stuff, and like he kind of has gained a knowledge of some of that. But I don't know. I enjoy action figures. I enjoy collecting them. I've done a lot less lately than I used to, mostly because, like I said, I just don't feel like I have the space anymore. Eventually, my goal is hopefully within the next year or two here, we're gonna move. I want to move out more into the country, and I want to build like an office space off of the house that I could have as like a museum that I could display. Like I have all these Prime 1 statues that I did. I have nowhere to display them here. It'd be cool if I could actually have them displayed in a nice big garage kind of office, kind of thing. So eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to do that. But it's I've always enjoyed action figures. Hoping and Ghost Machine, we got the Junkyard Joe. There's gonna be a Mezco's doing a figure, so that's the first one from Ghost Machine, and the sales were really good on the thing. So we're hoping that will lead to maybe some more opportunities with them, and we've had other companies interested too. All that stuff, I'm sure, will come in time. We don't want to rush it, but it's really cool. It's exciting to see that.
Take us home, Mark.
All right, Jason, last question. Is there something that we haven't discussed that you want the fans to know about?
I will say that this is something I've been asked a lot. We kind of brought it up, and it was, is Rook going to be an ongoing? And the answer is yes. A lot of people have been wondering if Rook ends with issue 6, and no, it does not. But like I said, I can only draw so much unless I want to bring in other artists to handle art duty, which I don't really want to, because I feel like this is something that's mine, and I want to be the sole sort of artist on the series and build it out, myself, and build out that vision with Jeff, and so issue 6 is the last issue for this arc. Comes out in October, and then I'm working ahead on issue 7 through 12. That will come out in 2025, and that's kind of the way that we want it to go. Sometimes the story arcs will be 6 issues, sometimes it might be 3 issues with a break and then another 3 issues, but my goal is to I would love to have 6 or 7 issues of Rook come out every year. And Jeff and I have joked that we would love to see the book to get to issue 100. That would take quite a bit at this pace, but Rook will return, and each story arc gets ups the ante, and we have a really cool story arc for the next part that gets really personal with Direwolf, and we introduce some new characters, a couple new villains, a couple new wardens that will be kind of along for the adventure, a little bit of a different setting on the planet. I'm really excited because I'm going to get to draw some different things, and it's kind of like a mix of sci-fi action with a little bit of horror and some scary stuff too. So that's coming next year, and my plan is to keep as long as people keep wanting to read the book, I'm going to keep drawing it. So it is an ongoing, but it was always the way we always discussed it was we wanted to follow kind of what Mike Mignola did with Hellboy, where he kind of released the book in like mini series, like a bunch of different stories, and he did them over time. Sometimes they were 4-issue things, sometimes they were a book of just short stories, sometimes they were really long epics. And so that's kind of the idea with Rook, and I think it will fit well with the story that we want to tell and really build this big grand epic adventure. We already kind of know where the ending is going to be, and so it's like how long do we take to get there? That's up to us, I guess. So,
and that's cool. That break that after issue 6 of Rook Exodus, then I think other Ghost Machine titles are going to be premiering, like High Street, and I believe the Rockefellers are premiering at the latter half of the year. And so it's kind of cool. You kind of exchange the spotlight for a while, and it's kind of a real collaborative effort. And then also I just want to ask, Ghost Machine, there will be all appearing at New York Comic Con this year as well, right?
Yeah, we have a big summit meeting down there this year. It's kind of the anniversary of our announcement. We had been working on it for quite a while before that, but that'll be really exciting. And it's always good to get out there and see everybody, and also be interesting because we kind of caught people off guard. Like we were able to keep a lid on the whole Ghost Machine thing. And when it was announced, like that day, like nobody knew about it. It was like it didn't leak to anybody. Like it was awesome. We all kept pretty tight-lipped about it, and so then when we were there, it was like nobody really knew like what is this thing, right? And so this will be fun to go back and to see. Now it's been a year. Most of the books will have 6 to 7 issues out, or at least from Redcoat, Rook, and Geiger, and I think Hyde Street #1 will be out by New York Comic Con. I'm not 100% sure when that hits, but we kind of have this. We'll have all these different books out and get to hear people talk about them and see them. It's always fun to engage with the readers who are actually reading this stuff and can, they're telling you about these plot pieces and their theories of things. Like I love that kind of. I love that. I love hearing that. It makes us excited to want to continue to make these books and to draw them. And the coolest part about this whole company is that like I'm just as excited when a fan comes up to me and says, "Oh, my favorite book is Redcoat." It's like I'm just as excited because it's like that's Redcoat. I'm proud of that book. I love that book. It's part of Ghost Machine. It's there's like this, we truly like we root for each other. Like I don't care if Rook sells the most or the least. Like I want other books to do better than it, and I want I want fans to just fall in love with all of our books or one or whatever. Like it's gonna hit different genres, different people, different likes, and it gets me really excited. Like I'm proud. Like Geiger won a Ringo Award, and it's like that's cool. Like, and I'm so excited. Like at that, I didn't work on that book, But it's part of Ghost Machine. It's part of our company. And I love Gary and I love Brad and Rob and Jeff. It's like, I'm proud of them. Like it's so exciting to see that. And that's such a different vibe that we have in our company than any other company out there. I never got that sense at DC or Marvel. Everything was very competitive and cutthroat. And this is this is the opposite. And I believe that is going to show in our books, and it's going to show in the product that we put out and with the people that we have working too. There's a different vibe with Ghost Machine. There's a freedom to create and just be yourself. And it's going to also be very attractive to pros who want that in their career and want to be a part of that. Yeah, I couldn't be more proud of what we've accomplished so far. And I think we have a lot of great stuff. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. Rockefellers, Hornsby and Halo, Geiger, or Height Street, Devour. We have a book called Soulless coming out next year. First Ghost as well. And there's other ones too that are kind of brewing behind the scenes, for release in 2025. And then we're going to also have stuff continuing with Redcoat, Geiger, Rook. And I'm really looking forward to it. And again, thanks so much to the fans, the readers, you guys. Like, I've seen you at so many of the different conventions.
Yes, sir.
I'm always like, what? How are you? Just must travel the world just doing these conventions. You're everywhere. But it's like that kind of love and passion for the hobby and for the books and the stories and all that. It gives us a shot of like adrenaline. It gives us something that like we feel like we're doing something of it that's actually meaningful to people. And we're hearing that a lot at different conventions. A lot of people coming up to us saying, I've been out of comics for 5-6 years, but Ghost Machine got me back in, and I'm really excited about the books, and I've been reading them, and I can read them with my kids. I can read Rook with my kid, with my teen son or daughter. And it's like those kinds of comments really make this all worth it, and it makes us want to keep striving to do the best we can and be the best company that we can for the readers, and to help the retailers, help sell comics, help bring people into stores, keep the industry going and moving forward, and having a positive outlook on it. So yeah.
Stash Fam, be sure to visit ghostmachinepro.com, right? Ghostmachinepro.com, that's the official website. You can get all the information, everything Ghost Machine. There's merch there, there are appearance schedules, all of the information of all the fantastic creators. Please pick up Rook Exodus. Number 5 just came out recently, and number 6 is upcoming in October, you said, Jason?
Yeah, I believe it's in October. I don't know what date it is in October, but I just saw the final colors today. We're putting together the final, and it looks really great. So
awesome. Well, Jason, thank you so much. You always have a home here on the Sig Slayers station. Dreams do come true. Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the like button. This is Sig Slayers. I'm Mike, speaking for Mark and Jason Fabok. Yeah, we are out. Peace. Sig Slayers.